I've said it before, but for some reason, Jewish holiday food is a confusing topic to me. There are a number of specific foods served at specific holidays, but then there are also a number of blanket foods kind of served at every holiday, so it seems. One of those blanket foods is brisket, braised brisket. Bubbies, aka Jewish grandmothers, have been curing souls with brisket for generations. I am but a humble messenger and passer-honor of the tradition. Passer-honor. That's a word. So historically, brisket became pretty popular amongst Jewish people for a few reasons. 1, it's a kosher cut of meat. 2, it's pretty inexpensive relatively. And 3, it's massive, so it makes for feeding a crowd, large gatherings, special occasions, holidays, that sort of thing. Brisket's sort of like the move. And I'm not gonna sit here and BS you. This isn't gonna be some Food Network-ass 45-minute weeknight air fryer brisket recipe situation. Though the technique is very easy and pretty much entirely hands-off, it is gonna take some time and patience. However, if you start early, if you really want it enough, you can totally do this in one day. Or better yet, it can be made a day ahead, then warmed up in the oven when you want to serve. Remember, good cooking does take time, and at the end of this process, you will be rewarded with a giant, colossal, decadent, juicy, tender piece of beef for your entire family. And friends. Or both. Every good braise starts with aromatics. I dig a ton of sliced onion in my brisket, and I mean like 4 whole large onions. Top and tail the onion, flip it on its side, then slice thinly following the curve of the onion. This cut is called a Julienned. Once all sliced up, set those aside. On top of those onions, we will be using 2 leeks, 3 bulbs of fennel, 5 stalks of celery, 3 carrots, and about 10 garlic cloves. These are leeks. They sort of taste like a more nuanced, slightly mild onion because they're related to onions. The edible part of the leek is its white base, but the top can still be used in other ways, so just set it aside for later. Slice the lower white part of the leek, then in half one more time to reveal the leek's layers. Leeks are notoriously dirty. It's really easy for dirt to get stuck in the layers as they grow, so just make sure to rinse and clean thoroughly. In this instance, I like to keep my vegetables large, just so they don't fully melt and sort of dissolve into the braise. Okay, fennel. Fennel's one of my favorite vegetables. It grows in little bulbs like this. The bulb can be sliced thin and eaten raw or cooked for long periods of time. Very versatile. These little leaves or fronds are super anise and sort of can be treated like a soft herb. In this case, we want the fennel bulb, so slice away from the top and the very edge of the root end and just save the fronds for salads or garnish later. Sometimes the outer layer of fennel can be dirty, and if that's the case, just shed a layer or two or just buff off the dirt with your hand. Cut the fennel sort of like we did the onion, and don't worry about how fine your julienne is. I prefer my braising vegetables a little husky. Next up, carrots. You know them, you love them. Just try to cut them into even chunks. Then into the container with the other vegetables. Last but not least, our peeled garlic cloves. Pop those in, and bam. Okay, so our veg prep is finito, but we're still going to add a few more aromatics. Here I got 1 bunch o' thyme, 2 fresh bay leaves, and some black peppercorns. We're going to make an herb sachet, also called a bouquet garni, aka we're going to wrap aromatics in a nice little bundle of cheesecloth to make removing them later a lot easier. This step is totally optional, but it's a cool technique to familiarize yourself with if you aren't already. Just kidding. Okay, veggies and sachet check. Now let's make a flavorful liquid for our braise to bathe in. Into a large bowl goes 2 cups of good stock, 1.5 cups of tomato puree, half a cup of red wine vinegar, 3 tablespoons of honey, and a tablespoon and a half of sweet paprika. We're going for a super flavorful, slightly acidic mixture, which is going to help break down and tenderize the tough brisket. Just whisk that up and set it aside. Alright, time for the big boy. Here we have 1 11-pound Wagyu beef brisket. Okay, so this is a full brisket. So usually at a lot of grocery stores you have just the flat, which is, if you can see on the lean side, it's basically just this long piece right here, this kind of like rectangular thin piece right here, where this part is usually cut off. And I really like the whole brisket because there's a ton of intermuscular fat and marbling, which, you know, just fat is flavor, so I prefer this. Okay, so brisket is a tough cut of beef taken from the lower chest of the animal. It gets worked out heavily, so it's full of chewy, strong muscle, collagen, and connective tissue. It's kind of cute, look at it. This massive hunk o' beef is big boy status, meaning it can and should take a lot of salt. It's very hard to overseason a brisket, so don't be shy. Next, we need to brown the brisket. This is our chance to introduce roasty flavors generated by the Maillard reaction. There are a number of ways to do this. Either just use a big roasting tray like this to sear the brisket directly, or set the brisket on a sheet tray and broil it. 2009 Sonoma Valley Cabernet. Like I said, there are many ways to do this. Just make sure that the brisket takes on some color. Whether you are searing or broiling, the brisket might have a few patches of paleness to it. When that happens, I like to fatality those pale spots with ye old trusty torch. It's better. Once color is achieved, remove the brisket from the pan and set it aside, then in with the onions and don't forget to season. As the onions cook down, their water will release into the pan and help deglaze some of the burnt bits from the brisket. After a few minutes, once the onions are sweated, we're going to finish deglazing with red wine. Any inexpensive but not completely trash bottle of wine will do just fine. Remember, deglazing is using liquid to loosen up bits of cooked on food from the bottom of the pan. Think of it as sort of harvesting flavor that would otherwise, quite literally, get lost in the sauce. Once the pan is deglazed, in goes the rest of our prepared vegetables and a bit more salt. Let the vegetables sweat down and release some of their water, another 10 or so minutes. Then remove the veg from the heat and make some room for the brisket. It's important to make sure that the fat cap is facing upwards. Gingerly lay that bœuf onto the bed of vegetables, then pour over the braising liquid that we made earlier. And don't forget to tuck in that herb sachet. To play it safe, I like to line the brisket with parchment before laying on any foil. The acidic ingredients in the braising liquid can sometimes react with the foil, so the parchment sort of acts as a barrier. To make this meaty butte edible, we need to cook it at low temperatures for a long period of time to transform its tough collagen into soft, tender gelatin. With le braise completely sealed, pop it on the lower rack of a cold oven and set the temperature to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. After about 2 hours, bump the temp up to 250 Fahrenheit and cook the brisket until tender. I made a video all about the art and science of braising, so if you're interested, be sure to peep that. After 4 hours, test the brisket for doneness every 30 to 45 minutes. To do this, poke the brisket with a small knife or fork, and if the knife doesn't slide in easily, the brisket needs more time. If the knife slides in easily, the brisket's done. You can also slice off a tiny piece of meat and try it, and if it's too chewy, the brisket needs more time, but if it's tendy, you're good to go. If you plan to serve right away for optimal juiciness, let the brisket rest in its liquid until it reads 130 Fahrenheit before slicing. If given the option, I prefer to let the brisket cool down overnight in the fridge, then finish it the next day. The extra time in its juices makes for an ultra flavorful brisket. To serve the brisket the next day, set it on a sheet tray and warm it in a low oven. If you want to be precise, take it to 130 Fahrenheit, but don't let it go too much higher than that or it could dry out over time. Go ahead and ditch the herb sachet, it's done its job. Okay, so now we're left with a super flavorful braising liquor and loads of soft vegetables. At this point, it's totally acceptable to add sliced brisket right back into the serving tray and serve it as is, but if you do want to take it to the next level, I prefer to strain the veggies. If you'd like, save some of the braising veggies and set them aside. It's really now or never. After the initial strain, pass the liquid one more time through a fine mesh sieve, then it's into a large pan to reduce until viscous. Bring the braising liquid up to a rapid boil and skim the scum and the fat off the top. Do not skip on the skimming stage or your sauce could get grainy and a little fatty. Once the brisket hits 130 Fahrenheit or is just warm through, remove it from the oven and let it hang out. Don't worry, this is a big piece of meat, it's not going to get cold while we're making the sauce. After 15 minutes or so, or once the braising liquid has reduced by roughly a third, remove it from the heat and set it aside. We're going to reinforce the sauce with red wine, thyme, and this little flavor bundle filled with carrots, celery, and shallots. Pour in about half a cup of red wine, then add the thyme and the flavor bundle. Reduce until au sec, or really in other words, just thick enough to coat the back of a spoon, 2 or 3 minutes. Once the wine is reduced, in with the 2 cups of strained, reduced braising liquid, bring everything back up to another boil, and reduce the sauce by about a third. It's going to take 5 or 10 minutes over high heat depending on the pan. By the end of it, the sauce should have a smooth, rich mahogany color and be jam-packed with flavor. Once the sauce looks like that, cut the heat and pour it into a serving vessel of some sort. Okay, that's done. Let's slice the meat. You've heard it before, and I will say it again, it's important to cut meat against the muscle grain. Luckily with brisket, the grain is super easy to read. Those long lines that stretch across the meat is the grain, so we just need to cut across that. Doing so will make the slices of meat much more tender and easier to eat. And I mean, this is why I love full brisket. It stays super juicy because of those beautiful ribbons of fat, which I might add can easily be removed if it makes you squeamish. Lay the brisket slices into a dish or on a platter, add some herbs to garnish if you want to be a fancy boy and or girl, then sensually pour over the finishing sauce. Okay, so yes, this process does take a large chunk of time, but once it's in the oven, you're pretty much free to live your life. Braising brisket is one of those cooking projects that really doesn't take all that much effort, and the results are very rewarding. Boop. Let's cut into this bugger. Dripping on my floor. Oh yeah. Pop a little bit of the braising veggies on if you want. Food-wise, the holidays could probably be defined as the season of large meats. Turkey, whole hams, tenderloin, rib roasts, porchetta, brisket. You get the idea. Also, cool little brisket fun fact. Brisket's actually the cut of meat used to make corned beef, pastrami, and Texas-style barbecue. All fantastic, meaty things that, it would be sad to live without. So thank you, steers. Thank you, brisket. I hope you enjoyed this video, found it useful, especially if you're the one cooking for your people this holiday season. Hopefully it helped you solidify a menu. And if it did help you out, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, of course, comment below. I'll do my best to get back to you. You could also shoot me a DM on Instagram or another form of social media. Happy Chris Mahana Kwanzaa, and I shall see you beauties next week. Au revoir.